Hello everyone. Welcome to the 10th episode of Epiq Thursdays. This is a momentous one. We've completed our double digits now, and super excited to have someone on the show today who I can tell you, in what I've learned from him so far, we can do multiple rounds of these 20 minutes just with Kevin Russell alone. Kevin, I'll introduce you very quickly and then give the floor to you. But it's a pleasure to have you join us all the way from San Diego. I know it's pretty early in the morning. You tell me your daughter's not even up, so this must be really early for everyone in the house. But Kevin has an incredible story. I will let him elaborate on that in a bit. But I mean, from my side, I mean, just to kind of give you a sense of who we are having the pleasure of connecting with. Kevin, he's an award-winning designer. He's a first-time author. He'll talk about his book that he's written recently. He describes himself as an energetic intuitive, who's helping people optimize their lives from their energetic core. I think that's very powerful. We'll discuss this later on in our topic today of how do you expand your consciousness to upgrade your life. And the interesting part is that he's come from a design and tech background, so there's a marriage of the left and the right brain. And then all of a sudden, he writes a book on the energetic evolution of consciousness. And the book's called Radical Enlightenment, My Guy on the Ninth. So I'd love to even understand, what led into that title. But here's the other fun part. I guess that he works in a steakhouse and ate red meat at least 5 days a week for over 13 years. So I'm sure he had a great period of self-discovery even during that experience. But with that, Kevin, welcome to the show, Epiq Thursdays, where we talk about all things epic, helping people get up into that zone of performance to help them physically and mentally optimize their, lives. So back to you, my friend, and tell us a bit about, what have you done that has led you to say, I have to write this book, I have to share this learning, this gift with the world.
Yeah, Aman, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and I'm really excited to be here and have the conversation. So the book was really, for a little while, I was not quite sure of how to explain it. And the best way that I've come up with, it was either a co-creation, a divine download. I really generally stay away from religious terms, but for lack of a better term, it was an experience that was bigger than the collection of the sum of the parts that I am. And it was the culmination, in retrospect, of a journey that I'd been on for a little while, of taking those deep dives, of holding up that mirror and looking at the reflection that came back, being self-aware, being self-reflective, being really using my mental space as almost a sandbox of play, in the sense that I questioned everything and I wasn't assuming anything. And the more work that I did in the energetic space, the more clarity, the more peace, the more quiet internally I experienced. And so in that regard, it was kind of a selfish journey, because the better I was feeling on the outside or on the inside, the better I was able to express that externally. And so that peaceful presence was just, that became my normal state, as opposed to the thing I was always trying to get back to. I liken it to a golf swing. If anyone's ever golfed and you hit a really true shot, you almost don't even feel it. But then you'll spend the next 3 years trying to chase that, get back to that same shot. And so a lot of the work that I did was really increasing the quantity of those shots that I was hitting, so to speak.
Got it. So, sorry, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, it started off in a traditional sense, where, and to your point, I worked in a steakhouse for 15 years, worked in restaurants for 20 something years. And in that time and in that space, if you're lucky, you get a family meal, which is, kind of, you come in for your shift, and then the chefs will prepare something for the entire staff. Being in a steakhouse, 9 times out of 10, it was something to do with steak. And so it was, I was in my late teens and 20s, and then even into my 30s. And I didn't have a perspective necessarily of feeling good or feeling bad. And so it was just business as usual, kind of going through, jumping into a couple different things with work from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and really having very strong reactions of fear. Can I do this? I can do this. Shoot, I don't know if I can do this. Of scarcity, a lot of the negative things that can be attributed with kind of taking that step out as an individual into an unknown space, I went through every permutation of it. And it started for me, like I mentioned, that traditional sense where I started exercising more, I started working out. So that helped to process some of the energy of my system that could otherwise go to the chatter in the brain. It could go to those self-limiting beliefs or self-sabotaging behaviors. And then started looking at diet. And then that shifted. That was another shift in the paradigm. One of the big pivots for me that we had talked about that I mentioned to you was I did a 30-day raw food challenge with my wife, who is a yoga teacher. And I had always had gastrointestinal issues and kind of systemic things. And 3 days into this challenge, everything disappeared. I felt solid. I felt, my natural processes were kind of back to what I came to understand as natural. And that was the biggest initial aha moment, was just living life. I never gave myself the distance with nutrition to know anything else other than the mode I was in. And so it really has been a practice of saying yes to things that I'm not quite comfortable with, something like a 30-day raw food challenge. And then also just being open to everything, open to different ideas, open to different thought, open to different ways of approaching things. And materially, there's a ton of information out there. Elon Musk reads 5 books a month. Wake up at 5 a.m. and do these 5 things before your day starts to really set yourself straight. And none of those necessarily resonated. They didn't hit for me as hard as for some other people. And so I just kind of kept tinkering around inside. And the more I did, the better, like I mentioned, the better it felt. And then my wife and I discovered or came across or serendipitously encountered energy work. And then that was when things really started accelerating. And that was the first glimpse I had into the energetic connection and really the quantum connection of everything in our lives, and then everything interpersonally, collectively together as humanity. And that's when things started really. I had the ideas, I started feeling better, and then I had one specific energy working session where I for lack of a better expression, I literally connected with my interpretation of my higher self. And it was a profound experience. And one of the results of it was the voice in my head changed just slightly. And what I heard in my own voice that was just a fraction of a degree off was, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you made it. We're going to have so much fun together." And so in one sense, it was a little disconcerting to hear your own voice in your head say something that you weren't thinking. And on the other hand, it was almost like a warm embrace from a twin I had never met. And then a week or two later, the book flooded out of me in just over 2.5 weeks. And I was writing 12 to 18 hours a day. And just, it was pure flow state, just pure, like I said, channeling, downloading, co-creating. But to your point, everything was filtered through my entire life experience, from my design background, my interest in process and technology, but then also the creative aspect as well. And so in retrospect, it was this kind of just, holistic, wrapped up with a bow experience that I didn't see obviously until after the fact.
Well, so I think you brought up something which I've been geeking out a lot in the past few months about, how do we get into flow states, stay in flow states, and avoid putting things in our way that prevent us from, kind of getting blocked into getting into those states. So when you talk about energy work and you talk about, helping tap into that sort of next level of it as consciousness or sense of being and awareness, you've been an entrepreneur for a long part of your life as well, right? You've done things, and as we spoke before we went live, we all hustle because there's times we need to hustle, but then there's also a time to kind of step back. Where was from a specific, maybe I would say tactical perspective, what things did you start doing? You said someone says read X number of books a day, but what did Kevin start doing? Saying, okay, hold on, I need to start making these habitual changes in my routines or in my sort of protocols that will help me start expressing myself and connecting better with that level of consciousness that I, experienced a few, whatever time that in the year you did that, let's say before you wrote your book.
Yeah, those glimpses. Honestly, it was really the energy work and the distinction that I came to understand between my energetic self, which to me is that unifying thread that every single one of us has. And those are the instances where you make a heart connection with someone, where it's almost unspoken sometimes. And my subconscious and my conscious mind. Personally, what I experienced as I was doing this energy work was the way to a peaceful state is not adding things, it's actually removing things. So every single one of us has absolutely everything we need already on the inside. It's there, it's just waiting for us to more strongly connect. The challenge is that just living life and being born into the world, we inherently, every single one of us will have certain aspects of PTSD, just because we come into the world as a pure being, as pure light, in my opinion. And we're thrust into these situations that we had a process of co-creation in. So I do think we also choose our parents, we choose our situations to some extent, but we have no idea what we're getting into when our father says, no, this is the way we do it, or our mother scolds us for something that we didn't know was scoldable. And even those subtleties of, oh, I did something wrong, or, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not attentive enough, those programs get embedded. And our subconscious, which is our autonomic system, it's all the natural processes we don't even think about, heartbeat, digestion, breathing, but it's also writing the programs of our life as we live them in real time. And then it's just stored away. And so we get to a situation, say, of an entrepreneur where we're going for a round of funding, or we're looking for investment, and we're getting ready for the presentation. All of a sudden, we break out in a cold sweat, or you're like your chest clenches up, or some other physical reaction. And it could very well be just the moment in time that you're experiencing, but chances are there are additional factors that come in that our system is saying, okay, based on these parameters, we're going to serve up this program, even though it was a program that was written at some point in our past, that our experience in the moment was able to get us out of that situation. But now the subconscious is running the same program in a context that wasn't intended for, in a situation that it had no experience of previously. So that's where we kind of get this phase shift out of that peaceful state, and we're dropped right into reaction. And so the more I cleared of my own stuff, and it's hyper personal for everyone, the quieter my mind became. The more space I had, I guess it's almost like if you have a really good breath, or you're hyper oxygenated and you go underwater and you're not struggling for air and you're just observing. It's like, okay, I'm spending a lot more time here than I have in the past. This is actually kind of really cool. I'm seeing the details that I haven't seen before. I'm seeing the way that the water is moving. And so that's really a filter that I started to onboard, in the sense that the more I experienced it, the easier it was to drop back into that space, because so much of the programmatic aspects of our lives were either being rewritten to a positive message or deleted altogether through energy work. And then the mechanism to access that and to really utilize the biofeedback machine that we all are is muscle testing with methods of inquiry. And so the two biggest modalities that my wife is now trained in a professional end that impacted me it's called the emotion code and Psyche. So going back to the quantum aspect of life, everything is energy. And the challenge is that includes our thoughts and our emotions and our reactions. So anytime we have a reactive response, that emanates and is broadcast out into the world. And so it starts affecting others. And so then we get into the conversation of culture with a company or a business. So if the leader or the C-suite or even engineering is under heightened states of stress with without having the realization that it's not them that's in the situation of stress. Because if we get to that place of clarity, we're a sailor with a gentle breeze and smooth sailing. But if we're misinterpreting that we're actually connected to what's happening at a visceral state, that's where we feel it, and it impacts us exponentially more. And so the more I moved from the state of enmeshment with my external world to the state of observation and participation, the more I was able to really cultivate that peaceful presence and awareness that if we didn't get a project, or if a client was unhappy for whatever reason, it was a lot easier to be critical and in my conscious mind of problem solving, instead of dropping into my subconscious and thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, what am I even doing here? How can, okay, we should just close up shop because I can't do this, which would have been, if not the operating system I defaulted to before, there were aspects of it. And so really the energy work along the way, and the realization that we are energetic beings, and that what we ingest from a media and a consumption and a nutrition standpoint is as important as what we create in our mental space. And the challenge is that sometimes it's not even us creating it. It's our systems that have been programmed to interact with our worlds to such an extent that it is an automatic process that we are kind of taken along with, as opposed to guiding.
I mean, there's a lot I would love to unpack there, but I think, like I said at the start of the show, we need to do 3 rounds with Kevin to get into this. Let me maybe, so let's look at the work of energy. There's the consciousness side of things, which is kind of interplaying with that. Then you've got these programs that potentially sabotage you from delivering at your highest level. Mm-hmm. For someone who is the uninitiated, like probably you were many years ago, and they said, okay, I can sense what Kevin is saying, but I have no clue now what I can do tomorrow at the end of this 20 minutes to get moving. What would you recommend to someone to get started with 3 simple things that they can start doing without getting too lost in the mechanics or the psychology or the technology of this thing at this point?
Yeah, too in the weeds with it, absolutely. The first one, actually the first 2 I would say are fairly straightforward and anybody can do. And one is breath work. I'm a big proponent of actual diaphragmatic breath work. And it's funny because every single one of us breathes the entirety of our life, but how many of us are ever trained how to breathe? Mm-hmm. And so from my experience, there's 2 paths. One is a little bit more passive. And from my understanding, that's a little bit more in line with the Thai Buddhist forest meditation tradition, where it's natural breathing. Our diaphragms are completely relaxed. So we all kind of have that Homer Simpson, push out in our gut. We're not sucking anything in. And we're oxygenating our system. And 2, we're creating a space where we're enabling ourselves to return to stasis just by breathing. The other is a more active, dynamic breath work and the practitioner, the originator is Wim Hof. I highly recommend everybody checking out Wim Hof. He's got free 10, 12-minute breath exercises on YouTube. And a vigorous diaphragmatic breathing, to me, almost gets me to the state of exercise, where you've required your body to work really hard in the moment, burned out or processed a lot of the energy, plus you get the benefit of the hyperoxygenation. And so you do have that kind of clear sailing mind space. So breath work would be number 1. The second would be, again, utilizing our energetic system and also our awareness. And so 1, it takes the awareness of, I'm not in a state that feels good. And so I want to move away from this state, whether it's anger, fear, resentment, whatever label it is. And so the easiest way that I've come across to do that, it's called a hookup or a whole brain posture. And the theory is it's basically crossing the midline of our bodies. And so if you can see my hands, what you do, thumbs down, cross, and then you can either rest your clasped hands in your lap or bring them up to your chest. And then you cross your legs at your ankles. And so from my understanding, the theory is that by crossing the midline of our body, we're actually recalibrating the connection of the hemispheres of our brain. And if we're dropped into a reactive state, our frontal lobe completely shuts down. So we're really back in that fight or flight reactive lizard brain state, which so many of us never get out of. I mean, collectively, we're all in some degree of low grade fight or flight almost constantly just by our modern world. And so the whole brain posture is a great one to, one, return stasis to the body, to the bodily system. But then it also quiets the mind to the extent that you can actually bring your conscious mind back online and be out of the reactive state. And then the third one, I would say I call it a brain game or a mental practice. And it's the first step for me was shortening the duration between reaction and recognition. And so if you have, everyone has reactions. It's a natural byproduct of life, and it's our body doing everything it can to keep us safe. If we harbor that reaction, or we let it get more embedded, so somebody cuts us off in traffic and you get really mad, and then you carry that with you through your day, and then you get home and you tell your partner, oh yeah, today was fine, but man, this guy this morning, he just cut me right off. What is he thinking? You're literally, that has become your reality, at least for that day. And so all of those things that were experienced in the moment, you've now pulled with you through time, and your system has continued to experience it all day. So you're just embedding that fight or flight. However, if you have a reaction, oh crap, somebody cut me off, and then recognition, like, oh, okay, my heart's beating, I feel the sweat on the back of my neck, I'm kind of shaking, this doesn't feel good, but you still feel either the anger or the fear. The recognition is the first part of shortening the duration from the reaction, and the first step towards expanding our internal space to get to the point of observation. And so by shortening the duration shortening the duration to recognition, then the next step is, okay, I'm aware that I had this reaction. I have a label for it, fear, anger, scarcity, whatever it is. And then the next step is to try and sense, okay, where in my body am I feeling that? And it's a mode of inquiry that takes us down the trail and can actually get us to the point of awareness and realization just by being curious and open and not having a thought of, okay, I had this reaction. Oh man, I remember one time my brother and I were, and this is hypothetical, we were messing around in the back seat of the car, and my dad turned around and get so mad at us, we almost got in an accident. I wonder if that, but I felt that, you know, he grabbed my arm, and like my shoulder hurts now. And so literally everything is connected to the nth degree. So there are these threads that we can uncover just with this mode of openness and awareness and self-inquiry. But then for me, it can take you so far depending on what's being asked. If it's something that our system isn't really 100%, you know, addicted to or reliant on, we might be able to get there more easily and have that awareness of, oh, my back, okay. Okay, so that, okay, maybe it is, maybe that is where I'm feeling fear, or this is where I'm feeling anxiety. And it's really reconnecting our energetic and emotional selves with our body and increasing the awareness of that. And so, yeah, the breath, the whole brain or the hookup posture, as far as, you know, in the moment methods of ease. And then if you're ready to start really having that self-critical, you know, take that first step or two on that self-awareness journey, shortening the distance between reaction and recognition, and then playing those games with yourself of like, why does that keep popping up over and over again? Why do I keep, if it's a relationship, why do I keep, recreating the same relationship? If it's something where we've become financially successful, but then other areas of our lives aren't as rich as we would like, okay, well, I wonder what that is. What pattern have I either created or onboarded in my life that now this is the reality that I'm living? And so self-reflection and self-awareness is the other big one.
So, again, there's so much to say there. I think the idea of also that stimulus or decision on stimulus also, I guess, matures with age as well, right? So I would have had a different reaction to my ability to respond versus react if I was 10 years younger to where I am right now. And this happened on the dinner table yesterday, for example. So again, this is like a live thing, like you feel it in your body. What do you do? How do you react to that? You kind of just take a breath, kind of take sense of where you are, and then you move forward. So I think this idea of connecting, the embodied performer, so to say, versus someone who's just not just reacting, just going to the moment as he or she feels because they have running out of time. I mean, time slows down like to the nth second for someone who's able to, appreciate that. And that's what happens, of course, with these high athletes as well, right? Or whether an adventure skier, for example, they can really kind of look at this, because for them, seconds define wins or losses and deaths or sort of ecstasy and performance. So completely on board with that. All right. So final thing, and then we kind of close off, is if people were to be set a challenge by you, saying, okay, here's what we'd like you to do over the next, say, 7 days, 15 days, 30 days, what would you encourage someone to do such that they can get into that stage of better self-connection and therefore have a higher connection to that sense of, enlightenment and so on?
Yeah. I think probably the first best step would be, again, if it is onboarding that practice of awareness, setting a schedule and implementing these things into life. So, just with these three, if it is something where, okay, we want to start our day off well, let's do a 15-minute vigorous breathing practice on waking or before the transition from kind of home to work, get breakfast taken care of and all of that. Carve out some time, and it doesn't have to be long, 10, 15 minutes of active breath work. That'll hyperoxygenate your system, move you from an acidic to an alkaline state, where disease and illness really there's no ground, no purchase for them to hold on to. And then during the day, that's when you incorporate the practice of awareness, of reaction and recognition. If it helps to journal, go ahead and journal. If it helps to just be aware of what we're doing, then do that. But be hyper present in the sense that if you're driving, just be driving. Don't roll the windows down, but don't have music on. Don't be conference calling. Just be doing what you're doing. If you're at work, be working. If you're in a meeting, be in the meeting. And then after the day, I would recommend just sitting quietly in that whole brain or hookup posture for as long as is comfortable. And then one thing, and it's actually, I was listening to Paul Chek the other day, and he had a great recommendation of, I would recommend utilizing it with the whole brain posture, but you can start asking your system, ask your inner self, show me a strong yes. Let me know what a strong yes feels like. And your higher self, your super conscious will give you a response of, and it could feel like elation, or it can feel like a lightening. And again, it's going to be hyper personal for everybody, because every single one of our systems is so specific to our own biome and our own experiences. And then the next one is, show me a strong no. Of my highest self, show me what a strong no feels like. And so one, in the whole brain posture, we're bringing ourselves back to stasis. And two, with this mode of inquiry of show me what a strong yes feels like, show me what a strong no feels like, we're enhancing that connection, that mind-body connection. And so if we're in a day and we feel something, we're like, oh, that's a no. Okay, what is my system saying no to? And it's really it's cultivating the practices that allow us, to your point about time, to be hyper aware in the moment, which actually gives us exponentially more space to act instead of react.
Yeah. So I think that's so true, right? So those who are able to appreciate these finities of time in the nanoseconds versus the actual second are the ones who are able to at least create more impact in whatever sort of sense we define impact. So I completely honor that. Kevin, it's been more than I would have even packed into a 2-hour show if you've tried to do in the last 30 minutes. So it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your learning, your wisdom, being very generous. If people would love to get more about what Kevin has to do, what's the best place for them to get hold of you?
Yeah, but the best kind of central hub is the website, radicalenlightenment.com. And from there, all the social is linked. Links for the book are there. And then my wife and I have actually created a quiz, and it's another insight tool, and it's a way to discover the #1 subconscious block holding you back in life. 7 questions, and you'll gain insight into what could most likely be an unknown or a subconscious program that's been influencing the undercurrent of your life. And then recommendations and prescriptions of what you can do exclusive of getting the book. And then there's also a customized meditation that my wife created. So again,
nice.
She's been in yoga for 12 years, or yoga teacher for 12 years, meditation teacher for 10. And so it's something where, one, we want to give people the insight into the way that their operating system, and two, it's a way to kind of, again, take those first couple of steps on the journey inward in order to accelerate the outward expansion of whatever it is that resonates.
All right, so there you have it, everyone. With Kevin, we've not just expanded our consciousness, we have created our brain and our life, and of course, our sense of being in this world. Kevin, thank you very much for your time this morning, all the way from San Diego once again. And for everyone who's tuned in to watch us now or will watch this show later, we're at nearly 5:30 p.m. here in Dubai, where I'm kind of signing in from. Stay well, everyone. Thank you, Kevin, once again, and look forward to kind of seeing you at another time. All the best.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.